You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome into RBLR Lightning. My name is Chris. I am joined here by my Bash brother and one of my best friends, Jake Snake Ricker. How are you doing, Jake?
Doing fantastic, Chris. Excited to get back into some more Lightning hockey with them obviously playing tonight. In as of this recording, a lot of fun news to talk about as well. Lightning have done some pretty cool things that we'll get into. So just happy that we're in the full swing hockey season right now.
Yes, unfortunately, the past two games are a little rough. So not where we want to be right now. But we'll get into that here in a little bit and break down these games here and get into some details. But first, with some awesome news, these new Stanley Cup rings, man, these things are a thing of beauty all around, from top to bottom. The color, the diamonds, everything is so well engraved. The representation is just beautiful, and obviously the number one BS being in there is just the top of the chip top, man. These were great rings to commemorate two back-to-back awesome seasons that us as fans just have been just enjoying. So these things are awesome. How are you feeling, Jake? How are you feeling about these rings? I know you're loving them as I am.
Oh yeah, they knocked it out of the park once again. I mean, they are just fantastic. So many cool, unique sayings on the sides or inside of it. They had another unique feature with it, which we've seen a lot of teams do, which is really cool. Everything about this ring, I absolutely love. I actually heard a story that when designing their first ring, Jeff Finnick was trying to settle between two different designs, and they ultimately went with the one, obviously, that they released last year. And Vinnick had jokingly said to the players and staff, they said, well, when you get one, we'll have one ready to go. And then, funny enough, the Lightning decide to win it the very next year and get ready for a ring away. And I believe this is that design that they ultimately were trying to go back and forth in between. So, and I love this just as much as last year's. So they did a fantastic job with it. It's really great. Looking at some of the things you mentioned, the number one BS, which is hilarious that they raced that whole thing that went viral when Cooch said that in his press conference. The reference to the cup boat parade is really, really cool as well. The last day of school, the thing that Cooper talked about, and I was saying it felt like the last day of school for a lot of these guys because they knew they were going to lose a lot of players in the offseason. The work over hope is also really cool, from those things we heard in Cooper's speeches. I think my favorite part of the ring is they got the two Stanley Cups on the side representing the back-to-back, obviously, and then the fans kind of underneath it with the one person holding up a sign saying "Go Bolts," and that's the Lightning paying homage to the clinching their 2021 title at home with the fans, as they weren't able to do that the year before. That is really, really cool. I mean, there's just so many little things, so many attention to details in this ring that have so many callbacks to the season and make it super, super special as well. They've got the record in there as well, the playoff record over the last two seasons for them, which they were 32-13, which is, insanely impressive. And then obviously, it is blinged out to the max with all the 338 diamonds in it, 14 karat white gold. I mean, that is some serious, serious bling. And then Chris, I don't know if you saw all of the presentation that they did, but they once again had it in a giant box with a really cool video that they made to announce the ring. They had I can't remember what band it was, but they had a band there playing. The Stanley Cup was there. So Lightning once again knock out of the park with presentation and the design of the ring. Just everything that this organization does is top notch.
Yeah, and I think my favorite part of the ring has got to be the cups back to back with each other engraved on there, and then because you even look at it, you got the crowd, kind of chiseled in there with the Go Bolt sign underneath the two cups, and I think I think to me that's my favorite part of the ring. It looks beautiful. It's so well done, and like you said, 338 diamonds, 14 karat, and just to think the entire team gets that. So that's a lot going into all these rings, especially with everything going on. So props to Lightning for that. It turned out absolutely awesome and way better than what I expected. So I can only imagine if we were to three-peat, not to knock on wood, but looking that far ahead. But man, could you imagine what next year's would look like? Wow.
I don't know how they could possibly top these last two. Which, by the way, Chris, if you want to pick one up for yourself, just a casual $12,000 for rings. Although you can get the quote unquote paperweight, which is my favorite terminology for this ring. That they call it a paperweight, and it's $200. I don't know about you, Chris, but I've never bought a $200 paperweight before. But the fan versions themselves are also very, very cool, and I might have to be waiting for the Chinese knockoffs to come around though, because it's still a little bit out of my price range.
I agree. Yeah, that's way out of my price range. Probably have to go into my stock or my 401k to afford one of those. So
Which would be
definitely
totally
not.
worth it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. But yeah, those things of beauty. So moving on really quick, some other news. We claimed ABB back on waivers. So I think that's pretty cool to get ABB back. I know us losing him, a lot of people are surprised at that we even let him hit waivers. And obviously he went to Seattle and for whatever reason, it didn't work out in Seattle, and the Lightning were able to wave him back and claim him back. So obviously, ABB being back should help a little bit. I think he'll get a little more playing time with the team struggling here a little bit to get goals early, and we haven't really taken a lead much in the season. So how are you feeling about this ABB claim? Are you happy he's back, or were you like so on him? I think I remember you saying that you were pretty high on ABB like me.
Yeah, well, this has kind of become an interesting situation to me. Because to answer your question, yes, when ABB first joined the team, I was really excited to see what he was going to be able to do. He had like 122 points in the QMJHL. He plays really well down in Syracuse as well. Is one of the top scorers in the entire AHL. But, Cooper decides that they're going to send him down to Syracuse. They wanted Radish and Kachuk to be up on Lightning's roster, and they've played pretty well for the most part from what we've been able to see. It's only been 6 games, of course. But, anytime a organization sends a guy like ABB down after he played in the NHL, they obviously still didn't think he was living up to his full potential. And then they were hoping that he was going to stay in Syracuse so they could call him back up if needed. But then obviously he gets claimed by Seattle. And you're thinking, okay, well, Seattle can definitely utilize him as well. They're a young team. They don't have much to lose right now. They're trying to find all these good young pieces. But then Seattle sends him right back down after playing 1 game. So Seattle didn't see something in him too. I don't know what it is exactly. If it's they think he just needs to work on some basics, if there's still something in his game that a lot of people really don't like. I remember his defensive game was something that was holding him back from being called up for the longest time. But it's great for the Lightning, obviously, because they get to claim him back off waivers. And now with the Kucherov injury, the Lightning need an extra guy. ABB can really help out on the power play as well, which we'll get into later. That is extremely been a big issue for the Lightning. So I'm happy they got him back. It's good for the Lightning. It doesn't really cost them anything. And, worst case, they can send him down again if they need to, and he can try and clear waivers. But, it's an interesting situation to keep our eye on because there's obviously something that's holding ABB back. He hasn't been able to reach his full potential, I feel like. But I think it will benefit the Lightning right now, especially dealing with the Kucherov injury as they try to work on that power play.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something maybe we're not seeing, and he's trying to maybe figure out what it is. I don't think the Lightning figured they would get him back. I don't know if it was a tactic that they, that maybe they thought they had a chance and they knew Seattle was gonna, release him back into waivers. I'm not sure. I know obviously we probably took the chance and it worked out. So with us getting him back, definitely going to hopefully fill in the void for Cooch for a little bit because we got to get these lines moving and rotate around, see if we can get some scoring going on for the team because we're struggling right now to get goals in the back of the net. So hopefully he can bring that spark, but I'm glad he's back. A little bit more news, Pat Maroon stayed home with the team, had the birth of his daughter. Don't really have much detail to dive into there, but shout out to the big rig for having a baby girl. Jake, have you heard anything about Cooch? Are we still sitting at 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, as far as I have heard, there hasn't been any new updates. I think the projected timeline, like you said, is 6 to 8 weeks. I think some people are hoping he'll be back in time for the Olympics or just before that, somewhere right around that area. So, no new updates as of right now, though. It'll be a little while, I think, before we hear anything. Hopefully, it's sooner rather than later, because the Lightning have been struggling without him.
Yes, absolutely. So we will get into two of these games we covered here, and we'll talk about some things inside the game and how we felt about these games. And obviously, we're on a 3-game losing streak right now, so it's not looking too hot right now. Obviously, we've struggled. We really have. We don't look like the same team. I think we're really missing a lot of the guys from last year. I think it's showing, and I think right now the team needs to just stay calm, remain focused. It's going to be a struggle in the beginning of the season. I think we'll be able to get things going. I think we'll be able to figure things out. Like I said, we're going to hover around this range for a little bit. We're going to see ourselves struggle here and there, but I think it's just going to take time for things to get going. Obviously, nobody saw Cooch going down. We didn't see that coming. So, and obviously losing guys we lost last year, we had to call up a lot of guys. So right now we're kind of thin on experienced talent, so it's going to take some time to get these younger guys going. But going into this Colorado game, I was worried. Colorado's a good team. They're the favorite, one of the favorites to go to the Stanley Cup. So I expected a high scoring game, which it ended up being. Obviously, the Lightning weren't able to get it done, but we took them to a shootout. So a point's a point. I'll take it. It's not a win. It's not 2 points, but the Lightning definitely battled in that game. We've still struggled really bad on the power play. So shots on goal were pretty even in that game. Obviously, our power play going 0 for 3 didn't help, but Colorado only had 1 power play. So they had 6 total power plays and only had 1 power play goal. So the defense did their job on the PK. So there's a little bit of positivity in that game for that. Still taking a lot of penalties, though. Once again, the penalties definitely need to come down to help our team, because us being shorthanded right now, we're already struggling to score. And when you're struggling to score and you're always down on the ice, it's going to be even harder. It's going to be a bigger uphill battle to climb. So I think it's important for us to stop taking dumb penalties and stay out of the box and play full hockey. Play 5-on-5 and keep the penalty kill fresh. Keep the guys on the ice fresh. So. Jake, how did you feel about this Colorado game? Obviously, we took the loss, but we did take them to a shootout. So I think a point's a point right now, and I'll take a point when I can get it.
Anytime you can pick up a point, it is a good thing. Obviously, you always want to win the game and get that extra point. But remember, we've talked about this a few times on this show before. At the end of the day, the most important thing is getting into the playoffs. The Lightning learned that the hard way. It doesn't matter where you finish. Obviously, it's a bonus if you can win the division or win the President's Trophy, because then you get home ice throughout the entire playoffs, all that sort of stuff. But it's not going to make or break your team. So your goal is to make the playoffs. So anytime you can pick up a point, move up in the standings a little bit, it is always beneficial. To touch on a couple of things that you talked about, you were talking about the penalties for the Lightning. You're absolutely right. That is another big issue for the Lightning. It's weird, though, because I don't know if it's just the way Cooper coaches or what the deal is, but the Lightning have always had an issue when it comes to the penalty kill or taking penalties rather. I don't know what it is, but they are always one of the most penalized teams in the NHL. But luckily, the Lightning have yet again an extremely good penalty kill. They're sitting at 85% right now on the season. You mentioned they killed 5 of the 6 penalties that they had. I really like PEB Bellemare. He's been really good for the Lightning on that penalty kill, filling that big role of after losing Goodrow, Gord, and Coleman, who were kind of all on that penalty killing unit. So really good to see Bellemare doing a really good job. Joseph has had a lot of shorthanded opportunities on some of these penalty kills. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to capitalize on a ton of them, which is, kind of alludes to the scoring issue the Lightning have had, but the penalty kill is very, very good. The other big thing, and we've noticed this literally all season long, the Lightning have yet to score a goal first. They just can't do it. I believe, I'm not mistaken as well, they've gone into the third period every single time trailing. which has become an issue. That's something you cannot be doing all season long. It's hard to come back in the third period. The Lightning have obviously successfully done it once or twice here, or two times with their 2 wins, but that's not going to happen every time, as we've clearly seen. So that is something I really like to see the Lightning try and fix. Try and get in that first goal, get off to a better. When you score the first goal too, you just you got confidence. Then you're playing usually a smoother game. You might start taking less penalties. So that's something they really need to work on. But as specifically, this game as well, I had the privilege of going to the game. It was an awesome game. I mean, Colorado getting off that early 1-0 lead, the Lightning tying it, Colorado coming back and taking the lead again, the Lightning come right back and answer in the third period this time. Then Colorado scores. You think it's over, but no, the Lightning pull the goaltender, and Braden Point makes a beautiful shot to put it in the back of the net. Emily was going crazy. The game presentation and just the job they do at those games is unbelievable. It's a ton of fun going to those games, high-fiving all the fans around. It's so nice to have full buildings back for these games. But it was a really fun game. And then overtime, there's some good chances for both teams. And then the shootout, the Lightning even did pretty good. Steven Stamkos scored a beautiful goal in the sudden death of a shootout. I mean, he's been a man on a mission so far. I've been really impressed by Steven Stamkos, and hopefully that just continues throughout this season. But unfortunately, Bassey wasn't able to stop the next shot, and then Colorado ends up winning it later in that shootout. So, but yes, good to get a point. That's the most important thing, is you're picking up points. The Lightning didn't look awful in this game. As you mentioned, Colorado is a good team. So you just got to move on and try to continue the issues that you did see from that game.
And you brought up Stamkos, which is something I was going to bring up to you here next. I think Stamkos has played phenomenal this year. I can only imagine having him and Cooch fully healthy finally, maybe playing together, where we'd be right now if obviously Cooch hadn't gotten hurt, because I think Stamkos has really stepped up, and I think he's definitely one of the positives in that game, and all season long, honestly. And I think also in that game, I think the penalty kill really did do a good job. And I think those are the 2 positives I would take away from that game, would be Stamkos, obviously leading this team right now, trying to carry the team, playing really well, looking healthy, looking like the Stammer of old. And then obviously, like you said, the PK. The PK played really well, kept us in that game, and we just couldn't find a way to take the lead. And we've really been struggling to get that early goal. So I'll ask you here, Jake, how are you feeling? Obviously, you said Stamkos is playing phenomenal. So do you think Stamkos is feeling a lot of pressure right now with Cooch being out to try to carry the team? And what would you say are your positives from this game, and maybe just a negative here or two from this game that you saw?
Well, as for Stamkos, I think a large part of it is, he's been ridiculed a lot when it comes to injuries. He tends to sometimes get hurt in bigger moments, so people take notice of it a lot. So I think he wants to silence a lot of those people that, saying he's gotten lucky on his couple of Stanley Cups that he's won, and then he's not usually able to show up in big moments. And I think he's trying to silence a lot of those haters. Obviously, he wants to make sure he gets a chance at representing Team Canada this year, I think, in the Olympics. He's unfortunately, either because of injury or because of, the NHL not participating, he has not had a chance to go to the Olympics and represent Team Canada. And I know he wants to make, and with so many good players from Canada, it can be hard to get on that roster, even when you're a guy like Steven Stamkos. But he is out there right now saying, hey, you'd be making a big mistake if you pass up on me. But as it comes to positive and negatives, obviously the positive, as you mentioned, is the penalty kill. They look fantastic. The other positive I would say is that this team obviously still has a ton of fight in them. They did not give up at any point in this game. They just kept on pushing and kept on coming back, despite Colorado taking advantage of the one really bad penalty call that they got on that quote unquote Vassy trip, and they just kept coming back in every way, and they forced overtime. So a credit to the team for always fighting and not giving up at any point in these games. That was really nice to see. Obviously, the negative side of things, as I kind of touched on before, they cannot score the first goal. They've always gone into the third period trailing. That's something that absolutely needs to change. They've been okay at the face-off circle. I think I'd like to see that get a little better as well, and just staying out of the box. You cannot give teams 6 power plays. That is way too much. They've got to stop taking penalties.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, got to stay out of the box. And before we go on and move on to this Buffalo game, really quickly, if you go back to the Florida loss and you go back to this Colorado loss, the Florida score looks worse than it is. The Lightning were really in that game against the Panthers. We had so many breakaways and so many opportunities, like you talked about, to have those chances to score, and we just couldn't get it done. And the scoreboard looks worse than the game itself really was. And if you're looking at the Colorado game too, we only lost by a shootout. So I mean, we're inches away here from these two losses. Obviously three losses now, but there's other two losses being wins. So we're hanging around. I think this team still has a lot of fight in them. We're still figuring things out. But I do think we'll get to where we need to be and settle in. So everyone just needs to relax after these couple games. You've played well, just some bad puck luck right now too. And when that happens, it can be a rough ride for a little bit, especially when you got new guys, new lines trying to figure things out. So I'll ask you here, Jake, do you think, before we move on to this Buffalo game, do you think should we be worried about Bassey's performance early on in the season?
No, there's obviously some concerning things that we've seen with the entire team and even Vasi a little bit, but this is Andre Vasilevsky we're talking about, the goaltender that had a shutout in each series clinching game in the postseason last year, and even the one dating back to last year in the last round against the Stars. So there's no worry from me for Andre Vasilevsky. It's only been 6 games into the season so far. So the Lightning have a lot of time to improve. But the big thing I always harp on in these early parts of the season is, are the Lightning making adjustments? Are they getting better? There's not reason to panic right now, but we are pointing out the issues that we've seen with this team and that they need to get better on. But if they can slowly fix those things, even if it does take a little bit of time, that's totally fine. We've seen the Lightning do this before. You look at when they won the Cup in the 2019 to 2020 season, they were terrible. They weren't terrible, but they were off to a bad start before they went over to Sweden and had a really good team bonding experience. I kind of feel like that needs to happen again with this team. So no reason to panic, especially on Vasilevsky. He has struggled a little bit, but it's still early. It is still very early. Eventually there will come a point, if this is continuing, that we can start asking those questions. But it's only 6 games in. We're still way early in the season. Heck, Buffalo is in second place in the division with 9 points. That should tell you everything you need to know if you should panic right now.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Vasi's still going to be Vasi. I think he's let in some weak goals this season, but there's no reason to panic yet. He's going to settle in. He's probably feeling the pressure. He's probably could be feeling tired too, man. These back-to-back runs are tough on the body, mind. Vasi always wants to play every game, so I do think he's going to end up being fine. And when you really look at our schedule so far, the teams we've played have been doing pretty well around the league. Florida's undefeated, but Buffalo's playing really well so far. So played Colorado. That's a tough team, home, road. It doesn't matter, So I think right now the Lightning just need to get off to better starts. We need to stop playing from behind. We need to get a couple goals in there, get some confidence, and let the defense settle in instead of having to go panic mode, being down 2-3 goals early. Totally changes the style of game you want to play. So I think we fix those things. I think we'll be okay. The only thing that is concerning to me really right now is the penalty still, because we even talked about the penalties last year, on the show a lot. And it's crazy, but we still won the Cup taking that many penalties. So it's one of those things where you're very frustrated with it. But when you look at it at the end of the season, we're still hoisting the Cup, taking this many dumb penalties. I guess that says a lot about our PK. So PK is looking really good so far this season. So let's transition into this Buffalo game. Obviously, it wasn't good. It was Elliott's first start of the season with this back-to-back here against Pittsburgh. So rough ride all around yesterday. We did outshoot them 36-25. Not that many penalties were taken in this game. We just really couldn't get anything going. Elliott didn't really look good. The team all around, honestly, didn't look good. We did have a lot of shots, and to the Sabres' credit, Anderson did have some really good saves too. So I think we did have some good opportunities in this game, but losing to Buffalo 5-1 hurts. And I know Elliott was in net, so I'll get your opinion on this game here, Jake. Did I miss anything? How are you feeling about this Buffalo loss?
I mean, you pretty much nailed it, but this Buffalo loss was frustrating to me. This was the one that kind of I had to sit down for a minute and be like, okay, it's 6 games in this season. Everything is fine. It's not going to be at the end of the world, but it was definitely frustrating because the Lightning, they just looked flat again in this game. You know, they went down 1-0 again. It's something they keep doing, and they have not been able to score the first goal, but they tie it. And then you give up a goal in the last minute of the second period. And this is something you cannot do. And yes, Brian Elliott didn't look great, but as you mentioned, the whole team just didn't really look great. They, again, were 0-2 on the power play. That continues to be a major issue. I know obviously losing Kucherov is a big factor in that, but that power play has got to get better. You have to capitalize on your opportunities. They only had 2 in this game, but you've got to capitalize on something. It's been a major issue, and I what do they do? I don't know. It's tough to say. I would love to see ABB continue to get some more work on maybe that top unit with Steven Stamkos, because he does have a really good slap shot that he can throw from the point. We've seen him score from there before. But the other big thing from this game that I took away, Chris, was Sergachev. I think he's really struggled at the beginning of the season. He's obviously still very young. We've seen his talent and this high ceiling that he can have, but he was a big part of that second goal too that Buffalo scored, where he just kind of threw a bad pass, and with under a minute to go, that's a pass you do not try and force, and it ended up biting him this time as they took a 2-1 lead into the third period. So once again, the Lightning still have yet to go into the third period tied or leading. They've been trailing every single time. So frustrating loss, no question about it. But hey, credit to Buffalo. They, who are in a mess of an organization right now, are somehow have 1 loss on the season. They have 9 points. They're in second place in the division. That's impressive. Credit to them. They did play a very good game. So they do deserve a lot of credit. But this Lightning team has got some issues, and it's mostly boiling down to me for the power play, the slow starts that they've had, and the penalties that they keep taking. So that's something to. Although they did only have one penalty in this game, so that was at least good. But those are the major issues that I've been seeing for this team, and it showed for the most part in this Buffalo game as well.
Yeah, I think really the only positive for me was the penalties are definitely down in this game. So hopefully that's a good sign that we're on the right track. Only one game, but it's still something positive to look at. But overall, yeah, just a really bad game. Playing from behind, we have to play from behind all the time. You got to change your style of play, and you're going to give up. You're going to give up rushes because your forecheck is really moving in the offensive zone, try to create pressure. So you're going to give up a lot of odd man opportunities when you're behind. You're just going to. It's going to happen, and goalies are going to have to make saves. And with Elliott in net last night, I don't think Elliott was going to save much. So unfortunately, that's a tough loss. So I'll ask you here. With us losing Cooch, obviously we haven't. I would like to say we'd be in a better situation than we are right now with Cooch on the team. Obviously, that's hard to say, but do you think that missing Cooch right now is causing a lot of these losses to come early on in the season? Or do you think even if Cooch was here, we could still see these struggles? And do you think maybe that we should mix up the lines a little bit at all?
Yes, I do think we'd still see some of these issues. Maybe there's a couple of games in here that we would have won if Cooch was in the lineup. But even when the Lightning played Pittsburgh, they had Kucherov in that game and they struggled a lot. They did end up winning their next few road games when they were able to beat Washington Capitals on the road in a really close game. That was the game he ended up getting hurt in as well, and obviously they beat Detroit. But listen, Kucherov is an undisputed one of the top players. I would argue top 5 in the NHL. Anytime you put him on the ice, he's going to improve your team. He's going to help you win games that maybe you shouldn't win all the time. But I do think there's still some issues even with Cooch in the lineup, but maybe it's just not as bad and people aren't panicking as much. As for line changes, it's hard to say. This is something where Cooper, can shine here with making the line changes. You want to. There's kind of an argument to both sides. If you look at it one way where you say, okay, we have a lot of new guys, guys like Corey Perry, Belmar, the rookies that have come up, they need time to build chemistry with their lines. So if you're constantly throwing those guys into new lines and moving them all around, that can be an issue. It kind of resets their chemistry, if you will, and they have to learn with playing with new line mates. So that can be an issue. But on the other hand, if you don't think these lines are working, there's no reason to keep them together, and you want to change them up. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Cooper Cup make changes. He did a little bit on the power play starting in that Colorado game. So maybe we start to see a little more as they've continued to struggle here. But I think for the most part, they've got decent lines. We've seen a lot of good out of a lot of these lines. They just haven't been able to finish. And I think a lot of that comes with just, continuing to build chemistry.
Yeah, I agree. Chemistry is huge in hockey. People don't realize that these lines, the chemistry is huge, especially in the power play. And the power play has really, really, really struggled. Obviously, going 0 for 6 in games, that just can't happen. That's too much of an opportunity. Like you got to bury at least 2 goals out of 6 power plays. Something's got to happen. We're going to keep struggling to score. If we can't score on the power play, like you got to get some momentum somehow, in these lines need to get some more time together and someone needs to get someone going, whether it's just a tandem, 2 guys working well together or whatever it is. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some line changes here. We got to get some spark going. We got to get that energy going again that we all know the Lightning are capable of. We know that we can score 6-7 goals a game. Yes, that's a lot of goals for hockey, but we know that the Lightning are capable of that. We have the firepower to do it. Now, obviously, a big decrease in goals with Cooch being out, so we're probably going to have to, play a little better defense with Cooch being out. We're probably not going to score as many goals, unfortunately, but we've won plenty of games without Cooch. We've survived without Cooch, so it's possible. It's just we got to remain patient. It's going to take some time. So I'll ask you here, Jake, how are you feeling after seeing Brian Elliott in net for the first time this season?
Well, tough to judge him with one game and how the team played in front of him. He didn't look great, but we saw in the preseason as well. He had a bad first game where the team didn't play well, and then his second time that he came in, he played a lot better, and the whole team as a whole did play better. So I don't want to jump too quickly on Brian Elliott as of right now. I think we're going to need to see him some more and see what he looks like when the team is playing well. And also, if you look at just the score, Buffalo had a few empty netters as well. So not every goal was on Brian Elliott. And up until, the third period, it was a 2-1 hockey game. And that was a really tough shot for Elliott to start on that breakaway that Buffalo had at the end of the second period. So, I don't think he was awful per se, but I think there's a couple of goals he would have liked to have back, but it's going to take some time for him to settle in as well. So no reason to quickly jump on Brian Elliott right now. It's been one game.
And it's unfortunate it had to be to Buffalo because a lot of people are like, we're playing Buffalo. We got a backup in. So we have a shot. But unfortunately, the tables were turned where Buffalo was able to put 5 in the net. But you're right. A lot of these scores, like we talked about at the end of the games, look a little more misleading than they are. So if you really look at that, the Lightning have been in almost every game this season with a chance of winning. So if that's any positivity to take away from these games so far, I think it's that we've been close. So we just need to break through early, get a lead, and see what we do with a lead instead of having to constantly play from behind and tire on our guys.
And to your expectation, or to your point about expectations, you cannot look at these games as, this team's in last place in the division, we should destroy them, or it's Buffalo, they're a mess, we should easily win this game, we have a backup goaltender in. Listen, this is the National Hockey League, and this goes for any sport. Anybody can beat anybody. That's why you have big upsets all the time in all these different sports, is because, bettors or fans, kind of put these teams into a category. But these guys are playing at the NHL level for a reason. All it takes is a bad night, a couple of bad bounces, or a team getting on a hot streak, or a goaltender standing on his head, and you can win hockey games against anybody. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. Just because it was against Buffalo doesn't mean that it was even a worse performance by Brian Elliott, because Buffalo still has, some good NHL players.
Right. And even if you if you just take a quick look around the league, we're literally 1 point out of 4th place. So we're sitting at 2, 3, and 1. The sky isn't falling. It's plenty of time in hockey. We're at a full season this year. We don't have to worry about the crunch down season and like, oh yeah, obviously every point matters. It does matter, but we don't have to panic yet. We do not. We're not even halfway through the season. We're a
Right.
couple games
Maybe at a
in.
quarter. Maybe at a quarter you can start to panic.
Right, you could, yes, and I'm sure people in Toronto are panicking. 4 straight losses for Toronto, sitting at 2-4-1. So there's a lot of weird things going around the league. The Blackhawks are 0-5-1. The Coyotes are 0-5. So like, there's a lot of
It
stuff
could be
going on
worse.
around. Right,
Could be worse.
yes, way worse. So we're sitting pretty. We're sitting fine. Plenty of season left. Everyone needs to sit back, relax, and just enjoy these beautiful rings that we can stare at every day, and only hope and only hope to ever own one. So with that
Right.
being said, man, let's take a look at these next couple games before we have our show next week. Obviously, we're traveling to Pittsburgh tonight as we record here on Tuesday of the back-to-back. So Vasi will be in net tonight. Then we have a home game back on home ice against Arizona, who currently is winless in the league. So maybe after that, if we lost, then maybe we're gonna see what's up. We could go out there and put 6 goals on them, or we could go out there and Arizona pulls off the upset, and it might be time to panic after that one. But let's just hope for the best, And then obviously we have another game against Washington at home. Caps are sitting at that 4-0-2. So right now the Caps look good. We were one of the teams to take them down. So um, as we look to this road ahead, how are you feeling moving forward? Do you think next week when we talk, obviously I said that we would be on a 3-game win streak, unfortunately, or not. So I apologize to any of the listeners who put bets on the game. It's not on me. I am just having a good time here on this show. So please don't take me that serious. But no, in all seriousness, how do you feel about these next couple games? Do you think we're going to turn things around in these next couple games, or do you think we should just sit here and take every game by game?
We need one of those sound bites that goes through like a really fast warning that reads off that we are
Right.
not professional gamblers or anything like that. But no, obviously I expect this team to perform at a high level. So I expect them to come out of this next few games with a winning record. They're playing Pittsburgh tonight. They obviously are going to be looking for some revenge against Pittsburgh for spoiling their banner night. They really struggled against Pittsburgh. They just confirmed this actually, that he's going to be out again tonight. So no Sidney Crosby. So this is still a beat up Pittsburgh team, although they've played really well. Credit to Pittsburgh. So it's a tough game, but the Lightning do tend to play their better games against good teams for whatever reason, and then they like to struggle against the bad teams. It's weird, I know, but they should look good against Pittsburgh. You talked about Washington, where that was one of the games they won. Actually, against Washington, I still think that's their best game so far this season.
Agreed.
They played really well against Washington, so that game doesn't overly concern me. The one that concerns me the most, honestly, is the one against Arizona, just because the Lightning sometimes struggle with the Coyotes, and they're also 0-3 at home, and that game is at Amalie Arena. So I would really like to hope they stomp the floor with Arizona and the Coyotes and are able to, really get the train on the tracks at that point, if you will, and get that confidence back, win a game at home, have the crowd behind you in that one, and really start to get back on the pace that they want to be. But that's a game to watch out for, because again, as I mentioned earlier, just because it's the Coyotes doesn't mean it's a guaranteed victory. The Lightning have to be playing their best each and every single night. I do truly believe they will get back to where they want to be soon, but they've got to start limiting some of these mistakes that we've seen in every game that we've talked about.
I agree with you 100%, man. We just got to hang on, man. We're going to be okay. It's a bumpy road right now, but I think things will start to turn around eventually. There's a lot of weird things going around the NHL right now, and you made a very good point about anyone can beat anyone on any night. So we can't just overlook teams in that Arizona game. We can't overlook that. We need to come out and still play them like any other team in the league and show the league what we are definitely capable of. So I think we'll be turning things around here. The sky isn't falling yet. It's early, plenty of time. We're a point out of being tied for 4th place. So let's just sit back, relax, and like I said, enjoy these beautiful rings. So but before we get out of here, I want to give a shout out to all of our listeners here at RBLR. You can follow us on all social media platforms at RBLR Sports. We're on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Stitch, you name it. We're there. We appreciate everyone following us and giving us the listens and the time, because we're out here doing some fun stuff. So give us a comment. Let us know what you want to hear. Jake, I'll give you the final word, man. Take us home.
Let's get a big win tonight, boys, here in Pittsburgh as this recording. You'll probably listen to this to after. Hopefully the Lightning win, though. The big game tonight. I'm ready to get this things back on track. I'm excited that the hockey scene is back. I cannot wait for the Nashville game coming up here soon. They're starting to do some promotions for the Stadium Series, so that is something to highly look forward to. But other than that, go Bolts, man.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.